Hey there, this is Heidi from Create with Heidi, and today I'm going to show you how to make a fall banner with cardstock and vinyl. I have everything cut out here ready to go, so I'm going to move this out of the way so that I can get started with cutting. First and foremost, I need to remove the plastic protectant off my cutting mat, and then I'm going to put my first piece on, which is white cardstock. To remove the material from the mat, you want to flip it over and roll the mat away from the material. You don't want to pull things directly off the mat because it can cause it to curl. Okay, the next material I'm cutting is vinyl. My tips are the same for vinyl as they are for cardstock. You want to flip it over when you remove it. And here I'm going to weed it, which is removing what I'm not going to be using. And I'm leaving it on the mat just so that stickiness of the mat can hold the vinyl sheet in place so I can easily work with it. I'm not going to show you cutting and weeding the rest of the material for this project because it's all essentially the same and I want to move on to the fun part. So on that note, let's move on. Here are the pendant pieces for the banner, which I'm going to set aside for now. And then laid out on this board is all the pieces I need for putting together the banner. I'm going to be using Barely Art craft glue, and I'm going to be using red grid transfer tape. Okay, I'm going to move this off to the side a little bit so I have a little more room. I'm going to get started with assembling my first gnome. It's the pieces I have here on the end, and I'm just going to, like I said, be using transfer tape and glue to do each piece. So have fun watching the assembly. As I assemble everything together, I rely heavily on my awesome scraper to make sure that everything transfers well and adheres well. So you'll see me using that a lot. Here with this first piece that I transferred, the vinyl shifted a little bit, and so I'm using my weeding pen to move that vinyl back into place where it needs to go. What I'm doing here is putting a layer of vinyl on top of vinyl. This works great. The one thing that I want to note is that when you pull the transfer tape off, it may try to pull up the bottom layer, and so you just want to watch that as you're removing the transfer tape. For this pumpkin, I'm putting orange on top of orange. The colors are very similar, but all I was trying to achieve here is a little bit of contrast, and it turned out exactly how I wanted. While this may seem like an obvious tip, I just want to point out my pro tip for you. and that is on the computer, which is right next to me as I'm assembling my gnomes. I have pulled up what everything should look like in the end, so that as I'm working with these little tiny pieces, I don't forget what goes where, and it turns out exactly how I wanted it to when I was creating it on my cutting program. I had a little mishap during cutting with this glove, and rather than cut out a new one, which I could easily do, I decided to just go with it because it's a pretty minor thing that I can still make look okay. I somehow lost the bow for the left braid, so I put it on anyway, and then later after I was done, I went back and cut a new one to put on it. Because this gnome hat is vinyl, I peeled it off the vinyl backing, and then I lined it up how I wanted it to, and I put that vinyl backing behind it again so that it doesn't get dirty and lose stick before I'm ready to put it down in its permanent place. For the sake of time and not wanting to put anyone to sleep, I decided to super speed up putting together this gnome. The gnome you just watched me put together and this gnome go together on the same banner pennant. And so I wanted to show a pennant being fully put together. The rest of the gnomes aren't shown being assembled since the process is essentially the same thing over and over. So we just get to skip to the good part and see the final banner at the end here in just a minute.